Ammar Kahf joins me. He's the Executive Director of the Ammar Centre for Strategic Studies, a think tank based here in Istanbul. Ammar, thank you for joining us. So, John Kerry's in Geneva. What do you think he will deem successful coming out of these talks today?
What's successful is to end the violence immediately, to end the violence all over Syria.
How likely is that going to be?
Very, very straightforward. Unfortunately, the Americans are not very serious in that, and they're trying still avoid pressuring the Russian and the Assad and the Iranians in their escalation of violence that has blown out of proportion all over Syria. And now they're talking about a cessation of hostilities in two regions, Latakia and eastern Damascus. Unfortunately, after they have reconsolidated some of their powers within these two regions, and now they're focusing on Aleppo.
I mean, you say they're not serious, but apart from, other than having the right rhetoric, and they have said they are putting pressure where they can to try and get this to be taken up by everyone, what else can they do to try and make this happen?
I mean, a no-fly zone, an end to the cluster bombs, an end to the phosphoric bombs, to the ongoing killing. I believe these countries can do a difference. Unfortunately, the regional countries like Jordan and Turkey are crippled by the lack of the lack of the U.S. will to end this violence, unfortunately.
And it is striking that a no-fly zone hasn't been put into place in Syria in all this time. They were quick to do it in a place like Libya and Iraq as soon as there was violence there. Why do you think they've been so reluctant to kind of take these additional steps?
I believe the current U.S. administration has a lack of interest in anything to do with the region, and they're trying to maintain whatever status quo that's going on.
And the Russians' fingers were burnt before, though, of course.
Unfortunately, but the Russians are also taking over this region in a very bloody manner that's unprecedented in any global conflict. And unfortunately, the victims are the Syrian people on the ground.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the Russians there. Now, their work in Syria has, as you said, escalated the conflict in some respect. Do you see a way for the Russians to try and bring about an end to the violence and also the removal of Assad at some point? Because there have been mutterings that could happen, that the regime may stay on, but Assad himself may be moved.
Well, so far there are no real indicators that the Russians are committed to the removal of Assad. In fact, they've constantly reconfirmed their position that the Assad regime should remain in power and only the people can choose, while now over half of the population have been victimized and then thrown out of Syria. And I'm not sure exactly what's left of the Syrian people to choose on whether Assad remains or not. I mean, I think this is beyond any type of question.
Absolutely. So where do we go from here? Obviously, these are preliminary talks looking ahead to the next couple of days where they have more significant talks in Geneva. But where do we go from here?
The Syrian opposition, the High Commission negotiations, has been very committed to a political track that confirms a transitional governing body with full executive authority over all branches of power in Syria, which obviously means that Assad will transition out of power. And that's something that the international community has not been serious enough and has been lip-talking about smaller issues here and there and a constitution and all that, while avoiding the real matter that the Russians and the Assad regime have been retaking lands, have been targeting civilians, have been committing war crimes that need to be held accountable to.
Absolutely. Great analysis. Thank you, Ammar, for coming in as always. Thank you.